Hello, friends. If in our previous clip we examined how our current calendar has been through so many trials and tribulations, mistakes and errors, and all those due to the faulty and inferior science and mathematical understanding of Europe, let us now look at something else which is much more severe. Because what the modern civilization has done is it has simply compressed thousands of years of the Indic civilization into something which was false dates and false narratives. And one of them is the fact that they date the Rig Veda to 1500 BC, 1500 years before current era. Now, let's examine this 1500 BC and see how does that work. What happened was that initially when the Europeans or the English had discovered Sanskrit and they found that it was such an amazing language, it seemed to have the keys to Latin, Greek and 260 other languages in the world. And they found that they were all speaking that. Actually, it made a lot more sense to them why they're speaking and what do they say in their languages. Because Sanskrit gave rise to the science of comparative philology. So at that time, for the first 40 years, they were going glowing references to India and the Indian civilization, including Voltaire, one of the architects of the French Revolution. If you read him, he will be of full praise to India as the mother of all civilizations. But then very soon the British realized that if these people we are now ruling over, how can they become our gurus and our teachers and our forefathers? So they decided, no, we need to do something, and then they hired Max Muller as a stooge whom they paid per page. But then if you read his narratives to his wife, you'll make out his whole objective was how to undermine the Indian civilization, their philosophies and whatever, to make them underconfident and kill their self-confidence. He has admitted to these things, but anyway, that's not our focus right now. So what happened is they were now trying to interpret things, and they tried to position the Rig Veda as something that was written by people who had arrived here from somewhere else. And they thought that if from Germany to India there's a commonality, then it can't be that it traveled all the way from here to that end. Let us find some middle ground. So the middle ground they found was this Russian steppe where nothing exists, then this is just grasslands. Or they said, let's look at the southern Caucasian, nothing much was there either. Or they try to sometimes say the Levant where probably there are some traces, whatever. And they try to say there was one group that went east and ended up in India, another group that went west and ended up in Germany, England, France, all those places. Now, it was fine. They were trying to say this narrative that that's how this whole thing happened. And then, towards the end of the 19th century, and then in the early 1920s, they discovered the Indus Valley civilization. And the Indus Valley civilization, starting from 3000 BC to at least 1900 BC, was at its it was a fantastic, brilliant civilization, not seen anywhere else. Its large footprint, number of cities, almost 2000 plus cities, urban planning, underground drainage systems. What? This is almost as a modern civilization, and yet it is competing with the ancient civilizations of that time. And then obviously they could not show that, when such a civilization is existing here, these people could not have migrated prior to that because they had to be it didn't make sense. So the best thing was, they said the migrations from those Caucasus and southern region, Russian steppe regions would have happened after the demise of the Indus Valley, which means around 1900 BC when those Aryans came in. They called them Aryans, by the way. The Aryans came in, and by 1500 BC, they wrote the Rig Veda. This is how they dated the Rig Veda. But there are certain uncomfortable truths which they cannot ignore. These truths are, one of them is that the Rig Veda mentions profusely this land as a land of 7 rivers. If it was written within 300 years of coming here, it doesn't mention any homeland as saying we came from there, that was our beautiful homeland, nothing. It calls of India as its Karma Bhumi, Punya Bhumi, Janma Bhumi, everything is India. This land of the 7 rivers, and they mention all the 7 rivers in the right sequence, and it's all there except for the missing river, that is Saraswati. They mentioned river Saraswati, and it seemed that the Rig Veda was written on the banks of Saraswati because it was profusely eulogized in the books. They wrote about this great majestic river that flowed all the way from the mountains to the seas. It was wide up to 22 kilometers at certain points, and it was It was the mother giver of the whole civilization and whatever. It was fantastic. And they wrote of that river as it is. Now, these people went on looking for where Saraswati could exist. They found the Amudarya river in Balkh area and they said that must be the Saraswati from where they migrated. Didn't seem to work. Then they tried to find a Saraswati somewhere in the Turkish region. Not seem to work. In Iran, didn't seem to work. Till NASA satellites and geological imagery uh, uh, showed paleo channels of the dried up riverbed of Saraswati. And that then proved that all the way from the mountains to the seas, the Arabian seas, the Saraswati flowed majestically. Because the river Satluj, which is called Shatudri in Rigveda, and the river Yamuna, both are flowing into the Saraswati. Somewhere around 22,000 BC or prior, the Yamuna turned east and flowed into the Ganges due to some tectonic changes. And around 10,000 or 12,000 BC, the Shatudri flowed west and merged into the Indus. At that time, the Saraswati became a little narrow river. Not very narrow, it's just a normal narrow river. Till 7,000 BC. After 7,000 BC, the monsoons started weakening because 10,000 to 7,000 BC, it was a monsoonal fed river. But after 7,000 BC, the monsoon started weakening and the river became intermittent. At one point, it completely disappeared in the Thar Desert. By 1900 BC, the river completely dried up. No more traces of it. And yet you claim the Aryans came after 1900 BC and now they were reminiscing about some river that existed, not even in their own times, in the times of somebody else whom they have branded as Dravidians, whom these Aryans have driven down south. Initially, they called it the Aryan invasion. Then it became quite evident there's no signs of violence, so there can't be an invasion, it must be a migration. Now, even that's under question mark. Because the Rig Veda very clearly talks about Saraswati. It doesn't even talk of it like a monsoonal river. It talks of like a river that has been flowing majestically all the time, year long, perennial river. And they profusely mention it. They are mentioned right from Ganges up to Indus, and they also mention the Saraswati river. So obviously the Indus, the Rig Veda must have been written sometime, definitely before 10,000 BC. And that is how old that book is. But then let's talk about this migration theory. They now talk about a migration. But then the Rig Veda itself talks of a Dasarajana battle, a 10 kings battle. King Sudas, who is the grandson of King Devodas. King Devodas is a king of Kashi as per our Puranas. The grandson of King Devodas is King Sudas. He fights a group of 10 tribal conglomerates. And these 10 tribes that he fights and defeats them, and then they disperse further towards the northwest of India. And who are these tribes? One of them are the Parsus. The Parsus are based after Parshuram, basically the axe-wielding warriors, and they are essentially the Parsis who went off to Iran. Then they talk about the Bhalanas. The Bhalanas are basically the Baluchis who belong to the Bolan Pass area, and they went over to the northwest of Pakistan. Then they talk of the Dravyus or the Dasyus. The Dasyus or the Dasas or the Dahes went on to populate modern day Armenia. Even in their own legend, they had a king called Decebalus who fought the Romans. Now, Decebalus sounds like an English name, but then when you start looking at it closely, it is basically Dashabalu. Dashabalu is the guy who is like Dasharath. He's got the strength of 10 men. That is Dashabalu. Then you have the Pruthus, who we went on to become Parthians. Then you have the Bhrigus, who went on to become the Phrygians. The Phrygians, if you ask them, they will themselves remember that they were called Bridges. So these were the tribes that went on to all these areas, and they today populate all those places. And they are clearly mentioned in the Rig Veda. Now, those tribes do not have memories of having been from India. But they do have these names, they do have those Indo-European language connections, but they have no memory. But if you try today, but they believe today so much that they were Aryans from somewhere central place from where they migrated across to all the other places. If you tell them, no, these were the tribes that actually migrated out of India and then they have populated there, they will foo-foo you. They will not want to listen to you. Because they don't want to associate themselves with us right now. Because that's the image we created of ourselves, which we need to change. So these 10 tribes have gone that way, which is again another very clear evidence. But then they claim the Aryans came from Iran and populated India. Now, at 3000 BC, at the height of the Indus Valley civilization, it had 2000 plus cities. It was the largest civilization with the largest footprint and had 5 million population. The Mesopotamian civilization in Iran at that time had 290,000 people as population and had barely half a dozen cities. So in 1900, when the Indus Valley declined, you mean to say those 300,000 people came to North India and then they pushed these 5 million people to South, and then they multiplied so much that today they are all Aryans in the North India and all these Dravidians in the South India? I mean, what stories are they telling people, and who is buying these kind of lullaby stories? Ridiculous. And they get away with this. And we want to believe. There are so many Indians who like to believe these kind of concoctions. That so many little people came and then they have overtaken the entire. Is it possible? And now when everything else is lost, because now this is impossible, it's quite clear who would have gone where. Then now they come to genetics. They try to prove with genetics. Now again, genetically, I had also talked of the house mice. Genetically, the Indian genetics, firstly, there is no distinction between North and South or East and West. They are all so intermixed. For the last 10,000-12,000 years, they are one people. And there is so much of similarity of them and the rest of the people around, in the west of India and Europe, that they want to use that as an example to say that the people have come from there. How could they have come from there? Because genetics is usually manipulated. What they do is they will take certain samples, limit sample sizes, make certain assumptions, and then prove it to you. If you want to counter them, listen to people like Dr. Raj Vedam, who's an engineer and scientist himself, or Priyadarshini ji. They will tell you how these people manipulate the genetic data to fool you. And then there are Indian journalists who then become genetic experts and they will write books about where we come from, as if we all come from Caucasus region. And it is so silly. So people, you will hear a lot of these narratives. I've given you some very key points which needs to be refuted before you even get on to anything else. So keep that in mind. Firstly, the dating of the Rig Veda, which is completely erroneous. Second is these 10 tribal names which are mentioned in the Rig Veda who have gone westwards, and those tribes are even today available, and some of those people have those memories. The tribal names are there. They talk about those memories, and those names still persist. Like you also had the Alinas, who went on to become the Hellenas, the Greeks. So you have all these tribal names out there, and then we're talking about a 300,000 population coming and replacing a 5 million population. How many people should come really to upturn the entire genetics of this land? So keep that in mind before you buy any of these silly lullabies. It really puts you to sleep. But I hope I have woken you up, and I look forward to you doing your own research and not buying anything that's told to you. Check them out and keep enriching yourself. Thank you very much till we meet next. Cheers. Bye.